What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another Yes You Can series. So by popular demand, I put out a poll for you guys and you want to see me do a $400 or under gaming PC build. So that is what we're going to set out to do today. And today being the first video of that series being the parts hunt. Let's go. Alrighty guys, so let's jump right into it. So the thing I'm thinking here of being a $400 gaming PC, I really don't want to do a Dell Optiplex, even though they're great for really just getting a budget PC off the ground. I want to try to get something that we can set ourselves up for upgrades in the future, so that way this PC has a little bit more life to it. So let's get right into it. Let's jump into the first part. Let's take a look at what we got from motherboards. So guys, really you can go obviously two different ways, Intel or AMD in regards to our platform choice, but we need every dollar we can get. A $400 gaming PC is much more difficult to build in these times. So honestly, I'm thinking our best bet in terms of price, not necessarily always performance here in this regard, is to settle on the AM4 platform still. What I'm thinking and what I'm hoping we can settle on is a B450 motherboard, or might have to dip down to an A320 motherboard and a first generation Ryzen CPU like a Ryzen 3 1200. I'd love to go in the Intel route in this kind of cheap area, because the i3 10100, 10300F processors are, you can get them really cheap, like anywhere between $60 to $80 now. However, you lose a little bit of options and you're still spending a bit more money in that regard. So we need literally every dollar we can get, because we need to allocate some money for that GPU, which is going to be the most expensive part of this build. On the screen I got I'm hoping for is my predicted values to find these parts for. So that would give us a total of $400. I'm really hoping we can stick to my projected, and let's just see where we go. So let's take a look at AM4 motherboards and see what we got. Let's take a look at B450 for an example to see if there's anything there. But when it comes to saving anywhere between even $10 to $15, we're gonna have to do it, because we need to make as much of a budget possible for our GPU. All right, over here on eBay, we're just gonna type in B450 motherboard and see what we get. Now we're starting on eBay just simply because it's a platform that most generally everybody can end up using that is watching these videos. I always say stick to your local used markets. Maybe we'll have to sprinkle some of that in with this video, because that is where you're gonna probably get your best bang for the buck. But at least with eBay, it should be able to help you establish some baselines to do some negotiating with. If you decide 60 bucks is too much for a B450 motherboard, I'm gonna see if I can go to my local used markets and spend 40 bucks. All right, so we've got the cheapest motherboard at the top here. We've got a B450 Pro 2 Max from MSI. This is a very used looking motherboard. Looks like it doesn't have any backplate. Let's see if there's any other pictures. I do like that they are pictures of the actual device or part, because sometimes you don't get that included. You just get stock photos. Now, yeah, we're also missing a CMOS battery, which isn't typically a big deal because you can pick those up pretty cheap. That's just basically a basic battery. That's not a game changer for me. The one and only game changer for me, I like how they included the socket picture here. It looks a little dirty, but I think overall looking pretty good. Let's see if it's got a IO shield included. What does it say in the description? Doesn't say anything. Let's scroll down to the description. Oh, comes with IO shield. Okay, but the thing that we're missing here that's going to drive up cost is a backplate. If you don't have a backplate, which I do because I build systems a lot, but if you're using this as a guide, basically now you got to tack on about 10 more bucks on your motherboard cost, because you got to go get that. Plus we are missing a battery. So we're looking at what you could call $45 for a motherboard. It's not bad. That's actually, this is not a bad deal here. So let's just take a look though. Let's just see what we got for maybe A320 motherboards, because the next motherboards we see here on the list for B450 are starting to climb up rather quickly. The next one here that no accessories included for this gigabyte board, so I'm kind of steering away from that. Plus it's a larger board. We're targeting budget, so we're gonna have to go for a small case. If we get a larger board like that, likely we're gonna have to get a bigger, more expensive case, so I'm just gonna ignore that one. And then the next one here is $60. Let's just see what the A320 boards show here. $40 for a ASRock board, roughly about the same price. Now let's just compare what we get with this board versus the B450 board. This is a much more basic board. Well, I mean, they're both pretty basic. They both have just 2 DIMM slots. What I'm seeing here is no attached backplate. again. I don't know why this is always a thing. I guess people just rip them out of systems. Let's see what the description says below for things included. No IO shield. The thing that we have with the other one is an IO shield. So, and it's actually a little cheaper, I believe. Let's look. Yeah, $35. And I think it's worth exploring this first board here for $35 if we say we got to add in AM4 backplates. But let's see what we can find on eBay here to kind of give us a generic, okay, $5. Actually, that's not bad. I'd say that's pretty darn doable. This is a third-party backplate, but this should work, and they're $5. Well, $5.39. So let's call this motherboard complete. It's actually pretty nice that we found this for $40. $40 for a B450 motherboard that's going to have more adoption to CPUs that allow us for an upgrade. You can even, heck, you can even throw like a Ryzen 7 in here. I wouldn't go anything crazy like a Ryzen 9. Ryzen 7 I'd say is really pushing it. Ryzen 5 is probably your best upgrade path, but the idea here is you have an upgrade path and we have some overclocking options that's going to help us give us a little bit of gaming edge in performance, because I'm pretty sure we're only going to be able to settle on a Ryzen 3 like 1200 for that matter. So let's put this into our Excel sheet. We're saying $40 total for this motherboard. So we're saving $10 here. So we're off to a good start. Hopefully we can continue this trend of saving money beyond my projected, or hopefully, you know, it helps us balance it a little bit. So let's see here. Ryzen 5 would be absolutely awesome, but that's saying that we can find a Ryzen 5 for, on my projected, I'm saying like $75. I don't think that's very doable. The last video we did for the $600 build, a Ryzen 5 was $130, so way outside our budget. Another thing here too, guys, is check Amazon Warehouse. So always make sure your options are available to you. So I don't know if we'll get a motherboard from Amazon Warehouse for under $40, but I guess it's worth checking. So let's go to Amazon real quick. 450 motherboard. And just see what pops up. 67, 87, 67. Okay, here's a $50 board, but that's still $10 more higher. $73, $90, $65. Yeah, these are all looking to be higher than what we found previously. There's a lot on here though, and actually some good ones. So if you're looking for better features, this might be an option. Yeah, here's a $58 motherboard from ASRock. This is actually quite a bit better board in terms of features and compatibilities, but again, we're spending almost $20 more. So we need the money for that GPU. Let's go back to eBay, go check on CPUs, and as we mentioned, Ryzen 3 1200 is probably our best bet for that. Price was lowest first, buy it now. Are you serious? $100 is the cheapest? No way. I can't believe this. Let's just type in Ryzen 3. No way. $100? Are you kidding me? Wow. $98, $100 for Ryzen 3s. This is nuts. Why are these so expensive? The cheapest one is a Ryzen 3 2300X. This actually is not a bad deal. Let's keep this in mind because this might be our only option, is to buy this guy. And let's go check out Amazon Warehouse. All right, so on Amazon Warehouse, we're not looking all that much better. The only thing I see here really is an Athlon 2-core 4-thread for $100. That's not gonna work out well for us. And here's where I was mentioning the Intel 10100F is for $84 is quite a bit better performing CPU. However, we have some limitations with that. So we might have to settle on this Ryzen 3 2300X for $98. I'm really surprised. I honestly thought that we would be able to get something around the $60 to $80 mark. This is quite a bit of a jump. But that also means that we saved some money previously with the motherboard, so it's kind of helping to balance things out. However, all is not lost. So we do still have our local used markets we haven't even explored yet. Now, it is an area that I wanted to get to last just because my local used markets are not the same as yours. But here's the idea. It'd be a bit of a baseline for you guys. So if I can get a CPU for a certain value, then at least be a negotiation tool for you guys to use your local used markets for the same exact way. So let's see what kind of CPUs we can find here. Basically, I only use 2 local used markets apps. It's gonna be OfferUp and Facebook Marketplace. So let's check out OfferUp and let's just type in Ryzen 3 and just see what happens. Okay, here we go. Ryzen 3 1300X for $80. That's pretty solid. That's about the price range that we wanted to look for. That's a bit better than a 1200. The only thing here though I see is it doesn't have a cooler. So Ryzen 3 1300 CPU has an old computer, just tested, works out well. Yeah, he's not mentioning anything about a cooler, but this could be something we use. Let's continue on and just see if we can find something else. Ideally, we want to get a cooler so we can actually keep the chip cool. All right, so looking like the best deal we're finding here locally in my used markets for a Ryzen 3 is about $80 without a cooler. Still not fantastic, but I guess at least a little bit better. Let's just see what Ryzen 5 comes up with. Just curious. If we can maybe find a 1600 for a good price. It's looking like possibly not. This guy's selling one for 125. Wonder if I can hit him at 80 bucks. So if I hit him at 80 bucks, though, that's $45 less than what he's asking for. And honestly, $125 for a Ryzen 5 1600X is not a bad price. The best I could probably get away with on the CPU is 100 bucks, maybe. Now if we go back to our sheet, let's just see here. We're giving ourselves a budget of about $75. So I really want to get away with a CPU for at most $85 to $90, but this might be our only option. And honestly, I don't like going with that Ryzen 3 option for 80 bucks and then having to go fund a cooler, because yes, although I have them personally, someone who's building up a PC for the first time probably will not. So I'm gonna ask this guy, I'll hit him at $100, and hopefully we'll say that we get the CPU for not $1,000, but $100. There is one more app though to look at, and let's just take a quick gander at Facebook Marketplace, since we're already on the endeavor of going after parts in my local used market. Honestly, I think a fair price for a Ryzen 3 is gonna be 60 bucks. So we can even come back to this guy that's got the Ryzen 3 and say, hey, look, I'll give you 60 bucks. So that'll bring it to about $80 with cooler. So that's where we want to be. In fact, I might just do that if we don't find anything else. Although it would be nice to have the 1600X. I don't think I could probably talk this guy down any lower than $100. That means if we go with the Ryzen 3, or at least saving $20 if we can get him to sell for 60, and then I have to come back and buy a Wraith cooler. And those are pretty cheap too. I think if we go back to like eBay, let's just search AMD Wraith cooler. Yeah, 13 bucks. So we would have a total investment actually of what's looking to be right at about the $75 mark that I'm talking about. Actually, what we'll do here is we'll just ask him right now if he can sell for $60. So I'm gonna make an offer of, and this was posted 12 days ago, so that should be looking good. Let's just put in he is only accepting full price of $80. I didn't catch that before, so what we can do is $80 is still pretty steep. I'm just gonna say, hi, is this still available? And try to work an angle of, hey, I'll give you 60 cash money right now. That's also another tip to give you guys. If you say you got the cash money and you're ready to buy, a lot of times that can help convince the seller to just say, you know what, all right, let's go for it. And if I were to guess, $80 for a Ryzen 3, I'd be surprised if he's had a ton of offers, because that's kind of steep. But let's just at least ask him, hey, is this still available? But that's something we're gonna have to work on here. Unfortunately, we may not actually get a conclusion of until the end of the video, where I probably have some edit time and tell you guys what happened. But let's check Facebook Marketplace just to be safe and ensure that there isn't any better deals to be had. Wow, he actually got back to me immediately. Yes, it is. Okay, let's see. Will you take $60? I have cash ready to buy today. Ready to buy. I think $60 is pretty reasonable, and if he's really trying to make the extra dollars, then whatever, we won't deal with him. But let's see what Facebook has, and I thought I saw something. Yes, this is what I saw. A Ryzen 3, actually, is that the same chip? Yes, it is, for $35 from this guy. So this is interesting. This is some terrible pictures, but this guy's saying he'll let it go for $35. However, based on his location, I can already tell that's gonna be a crazy drive for me, so I really don't wanna do that. So honestly, we don't really have much else to go on here. It looks like that one guy here is thinking to respond to my $60 offer. I think that's still a pretty fair offer. If we have to go with it, $80 total invested, we are looking at like right at 100, and that's where I probably would hit this guy. But I'll buy this from 100. So if I can't get this guy to come down off of 80, we're gonna go to the guy that's selling the Ryzen 5. So again, guys, hopefully this is a baseline example for you guys to be able to use, at least to do some local negotiations in your area. I realize my area, I live in a large metropolitan area. Prices on stuff are gonna vary pretty widely. Where you're gonna have more of a standard price baseline is eBay and Amazon Warehouse, if you can get a good deal there. However, that's typically a little bit more expensive because the competition has a lot wider reach. So we'll have to come back on CPU, but right now, I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna pencil in 100 bucks just to see what happens, because we may have to end up spending that much money. So that puts us roughly $15 over budget if we consider the price of the motherboard that we're getting for $40. So let's go find some things that are easier to find and cheaper, and that'd be the RAM and storage. So we're gonna take the PC part picker to find these items because RAM and storage have been so abundantly available at good prices. We can buy new here and get a good deal. So let's go to memory first. So if we're gonna end up using an older CPU, we're probably gonna have to at least target a little bit slower RAM, somewhere in the 3000 to 3200 megahertz range. So I'm gonna use that as a filter to be looking for, and obviously at the cheapest price. Try to stick to 16 gigs. Now, if there's a massive price difference between 16 and 8 gigs, I may consider that as a way to save some money, but I really don't see that happening. I think we'll be fine with just 2 8 gig modules for 16 gigs. Okay, and then our speed we're gonna take at a maximum of 3200 and the lowest of 3000. All right, and then simply sorting by cheapest available. All right, so here we go. At this point, I'm just gonna be looking for if I can get a 3200 series kit, and if it looks pretty okay. And I'd say that these T-Force T Create modules are pulling me in here. Pretty good looking aesthetic, kind of a silvery slash metal looking heat spreader, 3200 megahertz. We can buy right now from Amazon in stock for $55. And this is pretty much at your preference at this point. Really, it's just gonna boil down to, will our budget allow for it? And I think it will allow for us to buy a $50 to $55 kit. All right, so our total right now is sitting at $196. We're still under $200, and that's assuming that we're gonna have to pay $100 for a CPU, which may end up being the case. All right, so then let's move on to storage. Again, we're gonna try to find basically the cheapest one possible. So let's see what we can get here. And I wanna try to stick with NVMe as well, which given the market state as it is, NVMe drives are super, super cheap. All right, so in our filter, we're gonna make sure we got NVMe selected, and then we're just gonna come up here to capacity just to filter our capacity to not go beyond 500 gigs and not go less than 500 gigs. So that should do it there, and sort by lowest. All right, so we've got some pretty cheap drives. I'm not a big fan of Western Digital Green. I've heard kind of mixed things with Western Digital Greens. The fact that they don't have good longevity. Team Group is only gonna be about $3 more, it looks like. And I've used these drives before and not had any particular issues, but look at where we're coming in here at $46.99. And just curious, yep, and we can get it on Amazon. Oh, and actually it says it's out of stock, but Newegg's has the same exact price, so that's good. All right, so then what we're saying there with that drive, that was $47, we'll call it. There we go. So we've got a total now of $243. We have exactly $157 to spend for a GPU, power supply, and case. This is gonna get dicey. Okay, so GPU, honestly, the only way you're gonna get something, we need to target anything that's basically no more than, what did I put in my initial, $100. So if we pump that into where we are at currently, plus add 35 for a power supply-ish and $40 for a case, I think we're about to break the budget by, yeah, so $418 what we're really gonna have to do is find a GPU for under $100, and that's gonna be extremely difficult. So there's gonna be some limitations here. We're probably looking at possibly 2 gig cards, 3 gig cards, 4 gig cards are probably out of the question. But let's take to eBay, because that's basically gonna be our best widely reaching online marketplace, at least for that, and then see if we have to take to our local used markets. Buying brand new is obviously not even something to consider at this point. We all know that story. Let's start high and just kind of see where the prices are with things, and let's see if we can get a GTX 970. Highly doubt it, but yeah. Okay, that ain't gonna work. $165, although that's not absolutely terrible. If you guys remember what I paid for that GTX 1063 gig, so it looks like prices are coming down, so hope is returning. However, for a $400 PC, still it's pretty tough. So since we bought a $220 GTX 1060 before, what are they going for now? So even those, yeah, coming down a bit. A lot of Zotacs or PNY cards, not bad. This might be a hope for us here in terms of finding one that we can get for under $100. So let's look up an RX 560. This wouldn't be a bad buy, I mean, but we're busting the budget and we're already over budget, so we need to squeeze. So yeah, this would be a good one to get, honestly, if we weren't already $15 to $20 over budget. Let's see what the 2 gig cards are going for. Oh, closer. This one's coming out of a Dell. That's pretty this may be what we have to end up doing. But that's like right at about $100. Buy it now. This is just straight out of an OEM, so there's nothing amazing about it. It definitely can do some gaming. Valorant, I think, would probably run really, really well still on this card. It's got modern things to it, DVI port, HDMI, and a display port. So, I mean, okay, I'm gonna consider this. Still a little high, $109. So let's see what the 460s are going for. I believe the 460 has a 4GB model too. Yeah, they're up there in price. And they're a little bit more elusive, probably a less available card just because of the age. Yeah, those are going for way too much. So let's look at our 2GB cards. Here we go. All right, we're coming in under $100, guys. Nice. Let's see if we can find one that isn't an OEM. That might be really tall ask. That one's 120, darn. Yeah, any ones that are not OEMs are basically just breaking our budget. Now, if we could somehow get that CPU down $20, we could afford to buy like a $120 GPU here, which could be like maybe one of these Sapphire cards or something. Looking like we're probably gonna have to go with something like this. Let's see, this one is the cheapest, buy it now, $95. Actually, sorry, I think there was one more. This is interesting. It's showing, what is this? This might be a minor card. Ugh, that thing is nasty looking. Check description, it said usually when they say that, that means there's something wrong with it or whatever. Works intermittently. No display most of the time. Yeah, parts only. So we're not interested in that. The cheapest one here being the $95 card, which I haven't really used these cards before. I'm kind of curious how well they do. If they're even worth it, you know? But this is basically our options at this point. Now, like I said, if we're able to squeeze in areas where we kind of overspent, where we weren't planning to overspend, and the big one right now is the CPU, we could get lucky, maybe finding a EVGA B-stock power supply case. We're gonna have to get probably super cheap on it. It's gonna have to be well under 40. So let's pencil in and keep that tab open, but we're spending $95 for our GPU. So not 100, that's good. So our budget right now is $413. We're $13 over. I'd say, okay, yeah, we got a $400 gaming PC when it's at $413, but oh, we forgot to check GTX 1060. So let's just double check that. Oh, not 1060, I meant 960s. Let's see, GTX 960, $120. That's a 2GB model. Let's just pipe in 2GB. This, yeah, I don't trust that knockoff brand thing. So oh man, these are more expensive than I thought. Yeah, these are going way too much. All right, so yeah, we're gonna stick with this one for now, see if we can get a better deal on some of the other parts, and this is where we're really gonna have to work the budget. Alrighty guys, so we've got two more things left on the parts list, and that is the power supply and case, and we've got to knock off some dollars on those items. So let's see what we can do. Keep in mind, we haven't looked at our used markets locally yet. So that could also be an option for you guys if we need to do some squeezing or get some better price to performance. All right, so back on PSU Part Picker, I want to start with power supply case. I just want to leave to the end because yeah, we'll see what we can do on that. I don't want to overspend on case. I'd rather spend a little more to get the right power supply here. So 400 to 500 watts at the max is all we are really going to need. So let's just put that in as our filter to search for parts. So we're going to take it down to about 585 is okay. And I don't want these super low end power supplies. So we'll start at like 320 and just search by price. $16, yeah, no. All right, so the first recognizable name and power supply, and ones that I've used before. Here we go, Thermaltake Smart Series, 430 watt white. I've used these time and time again. They're actually, I trust them. They're good power supplies. They're not anything super fancy. They do kind of have, although the cables are sleeved, they really show the ketchup and mustard things going on, but we can get one from Amazon for $29. And what we were giving ourselves was $35 on the power supply. I don't think we're gonna get much cheaper than that. I know it's not a great power supply. It's not real ranking high on the LTT list, but this is a $400 PC in total. So, I mean, if it's something that you don't feel comfortable with doing, then save some extra dollars and buy you an upper tier power supply. But for a $400 build, I don't think it makes a whole lot of sense just because you're not really investing a lot of money to begin with. All right, so then last thing, we managed to get the power supply, and we're still considering $100 spent for our CPU. We are now at $408 for our total. We need to find a case for like 30 bucks. Don't know it's gonna be doable, but let's see what we got here. Let's go back to PSU Part Picker and see if we can just find a super cheap case that is halfway decent in terms of airflow, and etc. All right, so that's gonna be real simple. We're just gonna take our search down to, I'm just gonna zip it to 39 bucks. Oh, there isn't a single one for under. Okay, so that tells you something. All right, so the cheapest case here is this Cougar MG130, and actually I built in this case. It's perfect for this type of build. However, the only problem is it's $50, or well, 45 plus. So yeah, if we put that in, this is literally the cheapest thing on PC Part Picker right now. So I mean, really, we're $6 over budget. What's that bring us in on total? $414. Not bad, honestly. But I think there's some squeezing to be done that can get us on that $400 target. So let's see if we can get that CPU. We did make a couple offers to some people, see if they'll bite on that. I'm not real sure where we stand with that, but let's see what we can do here. Let's go back to our previous offers. Okay, so with this CPU, we still have this guy that we're looking at that had an $80 Ryzen 3 1300X with no cooler. I have a feeling he probably sold it, although he didn't remove the listing, but for some reason didn't like my $60 offer. I think that's super fair considering that he doesn't even have a cooler attached. But let's check back on the other offers. I think it was a Ryzen 5. Okay, so this guy, I did manage to talk down to 110, and I mean, that's higher than our $100 that we would spend on the Ryzen 3 from eBay, but this is a much better buy, being a Ryzen 5 1600. So I might just say, you know what, let's just buy it for 110. But I'm kind of curious now that it's been a little bit of time to see if we can find some better deals here. So let's see what we can find with Ryzen 3 listings in the right now current. There may not be many Ryzen 3 listings, to be flat honest with you. Yeah, not looking like it. The things that are coming up are just laptops. And then the rest of it becomes non-local pickups. Let's check our Ryzen 5 listings. Basically, the Ryzen 5s here that I'm seeing are the slightly newer ones, which, bummer. We may be stuck with spending $100 for our CPU. So that means that we're actually $10 over where we were before, and we're more sitting at, let's just double check our, so if we say we're spending 110 on CPU, then that means we are at 424. So can we get a GPU for cheap? Fortunately, we already know that eBay doesn't really have them for the price we want, and we know that we can't buy those brand new, so we're gonna have to take the local used markets again. As I mentioned with my local used markets, I'm looking for things that I feel like are within a price range that you guys can negotiate too. Clearly, I can make this PC a lot cheaper if I went with guys $35 CPU. That's not very replicatable. Like, that's an extremely cheap price, and to be flat honest with you, there could be something wrong with it. Trying to focus on things that you guys can use to give you a kind of a range to use to your negotiations in order to go build up a PC for on the cheap with using local used parts. That said, let's see if we can find a GPU. Let's start with RX 560. I think that's a pretty good card to stick with. There's definitely some listings, but they're kind of up there, $150. All right, so we're not really finding any RX 560s. Let's try 460s. My God, look at this guy. 10 days ago, he put this up, $245 for an RX 460 4 gig. Like, I almost want to just message this guy and like just chew him out. Let's see what his description says. This is becoming fun. If you see the ad, it's available. Yeah, you can already tell this guy's kind of an ass. Cash only, no virtual payments, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, dude, good luck selling your RX 460 for $245. And the rest of these are ship to you items. So again, we're not doing very well. All right, let's move on. Let's just look at GTX 960s. It's another kind of within the same realm of performance card. Yeah, these are even more inflated. Oh wait, hold on. This guy, this is what bugs me about OfferUp. This guy was selling this card for 80 bucks 2 years ago. Bummer. All right, I'm kind of giving up on OfferUp. I really wish OfferUp would fix this where listings would expire like after 30 to 60 days, but it's kind of screwing us over. All right, let's look at Facebook Marketplace where listings do expire. Start low. Let's go with the RX 460s. Why? $200. This guy just listed this dang thing. Nobody's gonna buy an RX 460 for $200. Okay, this guy's selling an OEM RX 460. Oh, here we go. Round Rock, Texas. That's a little bit of a drive. This guy's selling this for 60 bucks. What does the description say about that? Like, nothing. Best offer or shoot me a trade. Okay, 60. I mean, that's a good price. 80 bucks for an RX 460. This is another OEM card. See, one of these, I might be able to talk down to like 60 bucks. And that's honestly what some of these 2 gig cards are worth. 60 bucks. I think I'm gonna try to hit one of these guys with an offer for, I'm gonna ask this guy, hey, is this still available? But I think at worst case scenario, I mean, if we get it for $80 and he's not willing to budge off of $80, okay, that brings us down to $409. And that originally, that's the same card we found on eBay that we're looking to buy for, what was it, $95? So we are buying locally, but I think I can get this guy to come down to $60. Even if I get him to come down to $70, where does that put us? $399. So guys, it's doable, but I think within the time frame of making this video, the time that I'm making it, we simply aren't getting a whole lot of luck with CPUs. $110 is not a bad price for a Ryzen 5 1600X. However, Ryzen 3 should be anywhere between 40 to 80 at the highest in terms of price, and should come with a cooler. I think I'm gonna go with this, guys, and this is where we stand too with a $400 PC. You've got to make some serious sacrifices, and as you can see, this was a pretty in-depth parts on. So guys, putting together a $400 PC build is pretty rough in 2022, but yes, you can do it. So if that is your limit, then here you go. However though, if your budget has just a couple extra $100 in it, then make sure you check out this video here where we put together a serious price to performance gaming PC for just $600.